Around the world, tens of millions of people live in so-called sacrifice zones, areas that are often permanently damaged because of pollution from heavy industry. The town of Kabweu in Zambia is known as one of the world's most polluted places. Hundreds of thousands of people live in close proximity to a lead and zinc mine which operated for almost a century. Many residents say their children are suffering from toxic consequences and are seeking compensation. People in Power investigates.
It's a typical African scene. Kids playing football in the dust on a hot summer afternoon. But in this town, that dust could be deadly. Right next door lies a vast toxic waste dump from an old lead and zinc mine. Lead dust from the dump infects this township and beyond. Kabweu is now billed as one of the most polluted towns on Earth. As many as 120,000 people, over half of Kabweu's population, suffer from lead poisoning. Most at risk are mothers and their children. Diana Namwe is one of thousands of parents living close to the old mine. Both her daughter and son exhibit the ill effects of lead. Environmental pollution experts have given cities like these a label.
The term sacrifice zone refers to an area, usually heavily polluted and poor, that essentially has been forgotten. Over the years, I've been to many sacrifice zones in just about all continents. But the one that is most serious in my 40 years of doing this is the one in Kabweu, Zambia.
Professor Jack Caravanos is a world-leading authority on environmental lead pollution. And Kabweu has the worst lead pollution he's ever seen.
So I've heard where people are comparing different sites, and they'll compare, let's say, Kabweu to Chernobyl, and they'll say which one is more serious and why exactly.
In 1986, an accident at Chernobyl, a Soviet nuclear power plant, caused one of the world's worst environmental disasters.
And I have a simple answer to that. Right now in Kabweu, there is confirmed ongoing exposure to a sensitive population at fairly high levels of a toxicant lead.
This is the toxic legacy of a mine which operated here from the 1920s until 1994.
So in my travels to Kabweu, I would bring this machine. It gives us an instant reading of lead. And when I got there and took some initial measurements, we found very, very high levels. Over 85% of the children in Kabweu, this was about 200 children in the zone around the mine, had blood lead levels above 45. A number of 45 in the US would put a child in a hospital.
Diana's son Sashi is 5 years old. With no testing available, Diana doesn't know what his current lead levels are. But when Professor Caravanos was in Kabweu, he tested children living in similar proximity to the mine.
I was shocked. The instrument we used, by the way, peaks out at 60. We had many kids that had a level of 60 plus. So it could have been 110, it could have been 120. That was the highest I've ever seen in my career.
Caravanos explains why lead is particularly dangerous for children.
So the more lead that's in the body when the brain is forming, the less developed the brain will be. They will have trouble learning because their brain is not, let's say, fully developed.
With few public health resources available, it's left to people like Elizabeth Njovu, an environmental health worker, to combat the crisis. In the area surrounding the mine, at least half the children here have elevated lead levels in their blood.
The people of Kabweu want help. I go out there in the communities to help with the sensitizations about lead poisoning.
Today she's visiting Diana.
Because most of the people were not aware of the dangers of lead, the effects it has on the children and the adults. It feels powerless. How is it going to end?
If a South African law firm has its way, Kabweu's lead pollution story will end with the company it claims is responsible being held to account. Lawyer Zanele Mbuyisa is preparing a class action suit on behalf of Kabweu's residents.
The claim is against Anglo American for their operation at Kabweu from 1925 to 1974.
Anglo American, South Africa's largest mining conglomerate at the time, had a stake in Zambia Broken Hill Development Company, a company that mined lead and zinc in Kabweu.
The case is on behalf of children and women of childbearing age.
Those children currently await life-saving medical treatment. But that treatment is in short supply. Sashi's lead levels were last tested back in 2021.
Vampimile muno mwine mubale mutestira tabampima bamwikatana chena ba kumaendi ya April bambo kumpera umuti tabampera umuti alisana kwa 14 days 2 weeks in. After bampera wasampira no 1 week hospital umuti walisa wa shupati umuti takudi from 2021 Afika na mulile 2023 tabampera pomti uli wonse. Ndiwo akusakamana ine kaile futi chiri apa ntanje.
Diana takes Sashi to school. Intellectually impaired since birth, and with no treatment in sight, his entire future hangs in the balance. And he's not the only one.
We have a problem with our learners. Most of them have got memory loss. When you teach, especially sounds, they usually forget. I think it's from lead poisoning. Most of my learners here, they are affected. They will learn about something today. Tomorrow you ask them, they will just look at you.
Health experts warn that continuous high-level lead exposure from birth causes irreparable cognitive damage.
The boy is not been improving in learning. Is very much behind. He performs as if he's still in preschool.
This drastic situation affects just about everyone living near the old mine.
This is a very, very serious problem. You go to the churches, we are talking about lead poisoning. You go to schools, it's the same story. To some workplaces, it's the same story. To the households, it's the same story.
Elizabeth takes us to see the source of the pollution.
So we are in the mine area now, the old mine area. There's some processing being done. This smoke affects the people around this community. The children get affected, the elderly people get affected as well.
This toxic smoke is from the reprocessing of old mine waste. Soon we reach the waste itself.
There's a huge heap filled with lead contamination.
This is what Anglo American is accused of leaving behind. A vast mountain of hazardous waste. 6.5 million tons of it. The locals have given it a name.
This is what they call the Black Mountain.
Anglo American is now headquartered in London. Since the 1950s, while it still had a shareholding in the Kabweu mine, it's positioned itself as a socially responsible company.
Anglo American is a company built on integrity and trust. When our founding chairman, Sir Ernest Oppenheimer, agreed the deal to become the largest single shareholder of De Beers in 1926, it was done on a handshake. In the 1950s, he set a clear direction for the group by explaining that our aim is to make profits for our shareholders, of course, but to do so in a way that makes a real and lasting contribution to the communities in which we operate.
We sought an interview with Anglo American South Africa, who didn't respond. Then we tried its international headquarters in London. It declined our interview request, pointing us instead to its website, where it outlined its opposition to the proposed class action suit. Its key argument is that the company held only a minority shareholding in Zambia Broken Hill Development Company, the company which operated the mine between 1925 and 1974. We put this shareholding question to Richard Meeran, a London-based human rights lawyer who's also working on the case.
Well, from a legal perspective, the issue of Anglo's shareholding or level of investment is a total red herring. It's a complete irrelevance. Anglo's legal responsibility is dependent on the role that Anglo played, which affected control of lead emissions from the mine and surveillance of lead poisoning. Anglo completely failed. And it especially failed because its own mining doctors had drawn attention to massive contamination.
Zanele Mbuyisa says there was one doctor in particular who alerted the company to the crisis in Kabweu.
There's the affidavit of Dr. Ian Lawrence, a young doctor who went to work at the mine hospital. And this was in late 60s, early 70s. And when he got there, he immediately saw that there was a problem with the children dying. He wrote, "I became deeply concerned at the number of deaths amongst children under the age of 5 in the residential township, particularly of children between 1 and 3 years old. The difference in the number of deaths between mine children and local children was reasonably significant, so much so that I could not understand why no one else had raised the issue or carried out an investigation. Because of the colonial attitudes at the time, I don't think they even considered Africans or black people as people."
Back in Kabweu, we visited the home of Matthias Chatapankana, a former mine employee. He was gifted a house near the mine, but there was a catch.
These are the houses which were occupied by whites early when the mine started. Now, because of the fumes from the mines, from the furnaces, these people were removed to New Township, Luangwa. And the Africans were now given this house to be staying in. So we Africans remained here, swallowing the dust, swallowing the smoke. As a result, we are very badly affected with lead in our blood. The life of miners, African miners here in Kabweu, was not good. There was a lot of segregation. Africans on their own and the whites on their own. Once you are employed and you just make a simple mistake, you are slapped. Stupid macaca. Is this the shovel which I told you to bring? A slap goes in. And that man will go holding his cheek or his ear. Sometimes he goes crying.
Anglo claims that during its involvement in the mine between 1925 and 1974, its conduct resulted in little, if any, lead pollution in Kabweu. Matthias paints a different picture.
Zambians were always in the forefront, doing the work there, with maybe one white man who comes there to supervise you with a mask on his mouth, but you're working without protective clothes. We were in Dagestan, we didn't know anything that lead is a serious poison to human body.
Did you get sick?
Yeah, go to the hospital. You've got a bit of lead. I couldn't go anywhere. I was just a simple employee. But when a white man gets sick of lead poison, he was sent to South Africa for medical treatment.
So do you think Anglo did enough to prevent lead pollution?
Nothing. No. What they wanted was just lead and zinc from the mines. And we were using as tongs or tools to produce that lead.
And the lead remains in the soil to this day.
The dust, anything you touch, there is lead. The Anglo-American can't do anything. He just went and took their lead and zinc and all the money. They went home.
The mine was nationalised in 1971, and Anglo-American divested from it soon afterwards. With its productivity in decline, it shut down permanently in 1994. But that didn't entirely stop activity around the old mine. Elizabeth, the local environmentalist, takes us to see what happens there nowadays. The mineway still offers opportunity for artisanal miners, as they're euphemistically known. They scavenge Black Mountain for lead and other minerals, which can later be sold for reprocessing. Elizabeth arranged for us to meet one of them, a man called Simon. Fearing for his safety, Simon would only do that in a remote corner of Black Mountain, well out of sight of other miners.
Here we are digging lead and stones. This is lead. Here is the spoilers.
It makes you sick?
Yes.
But why do you do it then?
We were saying no work, nowhere to something to eat, to provide our families. It's hard working and it's very dangerous to human being.
With no other job options for Simon in Kabweu, he's been doing this work since he was 19. That was 30 years ago. Later we continued the interview at his house. He does what he can to protect his children from the lead dust he brings home, but it doesn't help.
They get sick. Two of them, they are finding lead in their eye.
In your children?
Yeah, my children now.
At this point, Simon got nervous.
We had to come here secretly. Are you scared of the other men?
Yes, because they can kill us.
Why?
They don't want anyone to see us. So even myself, I'm at risk. If they saw me, they can kill me in the compound.
So we must go now?
Yes, we can go.
He had good reason to be scared. While leaving Black Mountain, we were accosted by the local mafia. They were angry we'd been filming in the area. Luckily, they let us go, but only after Elizabeth made a call to a local politician we'd interviewed a day earlier.
You've seen how hostile they become? I wanted to get your phone and delete the stuff.
Anglo-Americans seized on the fact that mining and processing activity continued long after it ceased to be involved in Kabweu. That was back in 1974. It argues that the company is being blamed for pollution and harm that others have caused. Richard Meeran disputes this argument.
Something like 2/3 of the lead production occurred during the Anglo period. The bulk of the current contamination of the environment is attributable to the time when it was an Anglo operation.
The case itself has been dragging on for decades.
I guess now it's about 18, if not 19 years ago, when we got approached by the Kabweu residents.
Now, in late 2023, Zanele and Richard are waiting on the courts to decide whether the class action suit can proceed. It's called a certification.
So since the certification hearing in January, we've had 3 postponements. So we've had to call a meeting to update the clients. We'll probably go to Kabweu in December, January again.
In the meantime, the situation in Kabweu remains dire.
How are you? Good to see you. How are things in Kabweu today?
Julianne Kippenberg from Human Rights Watch has been monitoring how the Zambian authorities have responded to the crisis.
We have to look at both the responsibility of companies, but also the obligation of governments. Previous governments have really done almost virtually nothing. Nearly 30 years after the closure of the mine, people's rights are violated on a daily basis.
But hopes have been raised by the election of a new government in 2021.
What the Zambian government has done, together with a loan from the World Bank, is provide testing and treatment and to remediate some home areas, as well as a very polluted canal.
We interviewed Piri, the recently elected Kabweu district MP, to find out how the new government's lead remediation efforts were progressing.
The government have done a lot. There's a canal that we are cleaning up, just to make sure they're free of water. In certain areas, they will tend the soils. Then in certain areas, they will pave the yards just to protect children.
These and other activities are financed by the World Bank as part of a 5-year, $65 million project called ZimRep. The project was supposed to kick off back in 2016.
People were very upset because the project was indeed started officially in December 2016, but by 2019, nothing had happened on the ground. There were issues around mismanagement and really poor transparency of the project. So people in the community in Kabweu felt like they don't really know where this money went, what's actually happening with this project.
Perhaps most urgently needed was the testing and treatment of thousands of lead-affected children. But in 2021, that initiative stalled. Sashi and thousands of other children were left without treatment.
Ndatoka upangirwa takuri walipwa. So nangu tuinda mupima. Tapa stonga tomsanga na chena. Ala sango na chena bajomu toko usimina takuri. Nao tabale tuwafuite kishagari mumuti walipwa. Taure yusa.
Neither Zambian government officials nor the World Bank would answer specific questions about this. But Piri told us what appeared to have happened.
So Zambia bought the testing kits. Same week of delivering, they found out that test kits were found to be defective, meaning they could not go ahead and treat. But meanwhile, the medicine also was procured. But, you know, sometimes the civil servants, the way they operate, it's not very good in terms of service delivery. What I discovered on Voted was the letters were written for them to make sure that they buy another testing machine that they'd been using. But somebody who was negligent could not act on that till the medicines expired.
According to Human Rights Watch, this wasn't the only problem with the project.
Just last year, the World Bank's own public reporting on this ranked the project as moderately unsatisfactory. So even the World Bank itself recognized there were major issues.
We tried to put some of these issues to the one ZimRep representative who was authorized to speak to us.
Some people like Human Rights Watch say that you're not doing enough.
As a project, we're firm to say that our goal, our objective is to reduce environmental health risks to critically polluted areas.
But they won't solve it.
They will help to reduce the environmental health risks.
Is that preventing lead contamination in children?
As I earlier mentioned, our goal is to reduce environmental health risks.
Human Rights Watch disagrees.
We are saying this project hasn't really achieved a whole lot. What is really needed is a proper cleanup, proper remediation of the mine. Any kind of other effort to test children, clean up homes, pave roads, clean up other public areas like schools will actually be very, very quickly reversed and will be potentially futile.
Many in Kabweu are now pinning their hopes on the lawsuit against Anglo-American. But in December 2023, those hopes were dealt a serious blow. South Africa's High Court dismissed the class action suit. The judge labelled the claim factually and legally flawed.
We're obviously very disappointed and surprised by the decision.
The legal team visits Kabweu to pass on the bad news and to decide what happens next.
We believe that it is fundamentally wrong and flawed, and therefore the appeal procedure will be followed. The communities are keen that that should happen.
Ile maini eireterera abana besu ku kitofu. So kitwaba bulemu gwe bati bakuti balete chachi maini ebarenga kwe bati ne kitofu kiresangwa mu.
But for now, with little foreseeable help on the horizon for the people of Kabweu, all they can do is pray.
Nalanda fe amakayelo no mwana wa Yesu Kristo. Ewa shile somsho.